Have you ever realized that some Spanish speakers have two llamas informal ways of saying you? Get ready, because today we're diving into the fascinating world of vos. It's a twist in Spanish grammar that goes way beyond just being a regional quirk.
Yeah, it's like suddenly realizing there's a secret code within a language you thought you knew.
Right. It's wild. Millions of speakers, mainly across South and Central America, use vos instead of tu. And get this, it even changes how you conjugate verbs. Like you speak in standard Spanish is hablas, but in vos, it transforms into hablas. It's like this little accent mark just unlocked a whole new dimension of the language.
And that's what makes Voseo, the use of vos, so captivating. It isn't just about swapping one word for another. It represents a distinct musicality, a whole different rhythm to the language, reflecting centuries of cultural shifts and evolutions.
Okay, so let's get our bearings first. Where exactly are we encountering vos?
Picture this, a vos belt stretching across the Americas. You'll find it most strongly in Argentina, Uruguay, and Paraguay. Those countries are practically synonymous with vos. Then it pops up again across Central America, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, even parts of Mexico.
Wow, so we are really talking about a whole region embracing voses. But you're saying even within these regions, vos has its own distinct personality, right?
Absolutely. For instance, in Argentina, vos is standard regardless of social status, which speaks volumes about their egalitarian values. But then you go to Central America and things get really interesting.
Oh, so?
Well, they've got this three-tier system, the formal usted, the informal tu that most people learn, and then you add vos on top of that. It's like this fascinating linguistic dance, choosing the right level of formality depending on who you're talking to in your relationship with them.
Okay, so how you choose between usted, tu, and vos can be like navigating a linguistic minefield, depending on where you are and who you're with. But it sounds like in Central America, vos is usually reserved for people you're really close to.
Exactly. It signifies a deeper level of connection, a shared identity, that sort of thing. But of course, the vos map isn't always neat and tidy. You know, there are these intriguing little pockets where it pops up unexpectedly, like remnants of a bygone era parts of Bolivia, Ecuador, even Colombia still holding on to vos.
No way. I always thought of those as solidly two countries. That's so interesting. So we're talking major vos zones, but then also these little hidden vos communities scattered around.
Exactly. And then there's Chile, always the rebel.
Yeah.
They went through this whole anti-vos phase, tried to wipe it out in favor of standardization. Ironically, it only made vos an even stronger symbol of their unique identity, even if their usage is a bit different. They often pair vos verb forms with the pronoun tu, a fascinating blend reflecting their independent streak.
So it's not just about where vos is used, but how it's used. It's a linguistic fingerprint, revealing cultural nuances and these incredible historical journeys.
Precisely. Voseo really drives home that language is more than just words. It's a reflection of history, social dynamics, and those constantly evolving identities.
It's like vos provides this whole other dimension to explore within Spanish, beyond the textbook stuff.
Absolutely. And to really unlock that extra dimension, we have to delve into the fascinating, sometimes perplexing, but always captivating world of vos verb conjugations.
Okay, so we've got vos popping up all over the Spanish-speaking world, sometimes embraced, sometimes pushed aside, always evolving. But how did this happen? Like, how did vos go from this formal pronoun you'd use for like a group of people or to show a lot of respect to someone to becoming this casual you shared between friends? It's like the ultimate linguistic glowdown.
It is quite the journey. To really get it, we've got to hop in our linguistic time machine and zoom back to the root of Spanish-Latin. Both tu and vos were hanging out back then, but vos was mostly for groups or showing respect to an individual.
So kind of like using y'all for both a group of friends and D for your very important boss.
You could say that. But like with everything in language, things started changing. Over time, vos got a little less formal, found its way into casual conversations among friends and family in certain areas.
So while vos was getting chummy with the common folk, what was tu up to, just watching from the sidelines?
Not quite. This is where things get interesting. See, around the 1500s, Spanish decided it needed a really formal pronoun to show the utmost respect, and that's when usted strutted onto the scene.
Ooh, usted came in like, make way for the true form of formality.
Exactly. And usted did such a stellar job at claiming that formal territory that vos and tu were left to battle it out for the informal crown in different corners of the Spanish-speaking world.
A linguistic showdown. So how did this all play out in a place like Chile, which always seems to do things its own way? They've got that vos verb tu pronoun combo going on, which is so intriguing.
Chile's like the poster child for how deeply language and identity are intertwined. You see, back in the 1800s, Vos was just as common in Chile as it was in Argentina, but then came this big push for standardization led by a scholar named Andres Bello. He thought Vos was a bit too, shall we say, unrefined and actively discouraged people from using it.
Hold on, trying to erase a natural part of how people talk, that seems a tad extreme, don't you think?
It does now, but back then linguistic standardization was all the rage. The irony is this attempt to squash Vos totally backfired. Instead of fading away, it became like a badge of honor, a way for Chileans to set themselves apart to resist outside influence. It became a symbol of local pride woven into the fabric of their cultural identity.
Wow, so instead of killing it off, they accidentally made Vos even stronger? Just in their own unique way. Language is a force to be reckoned with. Now I'm dying to know more about these Vos verbs. They sound like a whole other level of complexity. Like, how different can they really be?
They're unique, that's for sure. And trust me, understanding these verb conjugations is key to really getting Vos. It's not just swapping out pronouns, it's like stepping into a parallel grammatical universe. Like, let's take the verb to drink. In standard Spanish, you drink is bebes, but with Vos, it becomes bebes. Tiny accent mark, huge difference.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this is way beyond just a simple swap. It's like Vos comes with its own set of grammar rules.
Exactly. And while we don't want to bombard you with endless verb charts, though trust me, they're out there, the important thing is that Vos verb forms are distinct. They're different from both the informal tu and the plural vosotros you'd hear over in Spain.
So when I see that accent mark popping up on a verb ending, I know I've officially entered Vos territory.
You got it. Think of it like a little linguistic signpost pointing you towards Vos. But just to keep things interesting, there are a few rebellious verbs that like to throw a curveball.
Ooh, I love a good rebel. Tell me more.
The main culprits are ser and meaning to be and to go. They've got their own quirky Vos forms you just have to learn by heart. They like to play by their own rules.
So Vos verbs. Not just a different sound, but a whole different system. It's like the more we dig into Vos, the more layers we uncover. But I have to ask, besides sounding cool, why does this all really matter?
Think of it this way. Every language has its own rhythm, its own melody. Voseo is like a unique musical key within the world of Spanish. It's got its own cadence, its own flow. Imagine listening to a tango, those passionate steps, the dramatic pauses. That's Vos, injecting its own flavor into the language.
So by understanding these nuances, you unlock this whole other layer of the language, a deeper appreciation for its diversity, and maybe even learn a tango or two along the way.
Precisely. It's about going beyond the textbook and connecting with the heart and soul of the language, understanding not just what people say, but how and why they say it.
You know, it's got me thinking this whole time, like, okay, we're learning the ins and outs of Vos, the verb conjugations, all that, but what does it actually say about you when you use it? Or about your relationship with the person you're talking to? Like, I'm guessing you wouldn't bust out your best Vos conjugations with your boss or a stranger on the street.
You're right on the money there. It goes way beyond just grammar. Vos is woven into those social dynamics. It can signal closeness, respect, even regional pride, and it's all there in those little accent marks. Like in Argentina, it's pretty much the default no matter who you're chatting with. But in other places, like Central America, that's where it gets really interesting. Remember that three-tier system we talked about? Usted, tú, vos. Choosing between them becomes a real strategy.
Right, it's like Vos is for your inner circle only. Those closest friends, family.
Exactly. Using it in Central America is like saying, hey, you're one of us. It's about that sense of belonging, shared experiences, that sort of thing.
So using Vos with someone there, it's a real sign of trust intimacy. You got to earn your way to Vos status.
For sure. It's like this linguistic dance that can even change over time within the same relationship. You might start off with usted to be respectful, and as you get to know each other, it shifts to tú, and finally, when you've reached that deeper level of connection, you arrive at Vos.
It's like leveling up in a friendship. But you mentioned earlier how Vos has been seen as incorrect or even a sign of being uneducated. Why is that?
Well, it's true that Vos has faced some prejudice, especially in the past. Remember those efforts to standardize Spanish we talked about? They often portrayed Vos as this lesser or just plain wrong way of speaking.
It's amazing how language can be used to reinforce those social hierarchies, isn't it?
It really is. And it shows how language is always evolving, shaped by these social forces. The good news is attitudes towards Vos are changing. More and more people are recognizing it for what it is, a vibrant, totally valid part of Spanish that deserves to be celebrated, not hidden away.
It's like Vos is finally having its moment, reclaiming its place in the Spanish-speaking world.
Exactly. And it just goes to show that language is alive. It evolves, it adapts, it reflects the values of the people who speak it. Voseo makes us rethink what we consider correct and appreciate the incredible richness and diversity within language.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive into the world of Vos. Who knew that one little word could open up so much history, culture, and linguistic intrigue?
It just shows you the world of language is full of surprises. There's always something new to discover, even in the languages we think we already know so well.
It makes you wonder what other hidden gems are tucked away in languages around the globe, just waiting to be discovered. What seemingly small variations might actually unlock a whole other level of understanding about a culture. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking those questions, and keep an ear out for those linguistic surprises that remind us how vast, fascinating, and constantly changing the world of language truly is.